I'm Megan, and thanks for joining me today. In the Western Hemisphere, we're moving deep into fall. Our temperatures are dropping. And so I'm going to do a practice today that will combine some somatic movement with a few longer held, relaxing, restorative postures. So you can think of it as a somatics into stillness. And you'll see that I'm on a blanket. I encourage you to take a blanket or underneath you, or this one can even be done in bed if you'd like some extra padding. You might want a blanket on top of you. So the idea is to embrace the cold coming and the change of the seasons, the shorter daylight in this practice. And also because I know many of you may not have blocks and bolsters and all the fancy yoga props. We'll be doing it all with just blankets, but you can also bring pillows in. So if you want blankets and pillows, just grab a few of those and get those ready for yourself. So we're going to start down on our backs and coming all the way down, and you can either keep your knees bent with your feet on the ground if that feels better for your back, or extend your legs. Take just a moment to set our GPS. Notice where we are right now. Maybe your day's just starting, or maybe you're ending your day, and that all makes a difference. Just acknowledging anything like that. Where are you? Where have you been? Where do you want to be? And invite yourself into your body. Maybe first just by noticing what parts of your body are touching the ground, where you feel supported. Also begin to notice where your body moves as you're breathing. Not necessary to change the breath, just noticing how you naturally move with your breath. And the breath and the body will continue throughout this practice to be containers for your awareness. And of course, like most people, your mind will probably wander off a few times, maybe distractions outside of you, noises in your house, or they might even be your own internal distractions. That's okay. Encourage yourself to come back to whatever you're feeling physically in the body, any sensations, and feeling the way you're breathing. And then we'll just gentrify our breath slightly. So I'm going to ask you to take your right hand to your belly, somewhere around the navel center, and left hand somewhere in the middle of the chest or the heart. And see if you can feel the way the body rises all the way from the lower hand on your belly to the upper hand on your chest. And then allowing yourself to fill as you breathe in and empty as you breathe out. So creating a bit more of a rhythm perhaps with your breath and that conscious awareness of when you're breathing in and when you're breathing out. Breathing in creates the levity in the space, and as we begin to move, it'll be the effort. And breathing out is about relaxing, releasing, the undoing. Take 3 more rounds of breath, noticing not only the way the hands move in the front body, but any other movements in the waist, the back body. Setting your intention that we're going to move towards this space of stillness. And right now, your body might be still and your mind may be fighting that. But we'll see how we feel now in the beginning of this observation and how we feel about the stillness mentally at the end of our practice. And you're welcome to take your hands to your sides. We'll begin with our left leg today. Just take your legs a little bit wider. So I'm sorry if your legs are straight, bend your knees, and your feet a little bit wider than your hips. Your arms can be anywhere you'd like at your sides. Feel your big toe side of your left leg, and as you breathe in, reach that left thigh bone forward and inward like you're trying to touch your kneecap towards your right foot. And as you breathe out, just lift back up. We'll just go that direction. That's internal rotation of the hip. Inhaling and reaching it inward. Notice the way your left back will arch, your left waist. And inhaling and reaching inward, and exhaling and coming back. If your head wants to respond and rock from side to side or move in any way, let that happen. So there's lots to notice now. The way your leg is lengthening, your thigh, your big strong femur bone, the way your waist is arching. And notice all the way into the upper left waist. And if you want to add a little more stretching into that area, as you breathe in onto the big toe side of the left foot, reach your left arm overhead. Just slide it. We don't need to lift it up. Let the weight of the arm be supported by the floor. If there's pulling, you can bend your elbow and reach from your elbow. And exhale. Let that go. So create this length through the left side of the body. We'll do about 3 to 5 more rounds. You can also just stop, although we'll be stopping to hold this momentarily. Coming back to that feeling of your breath and the sensations of your body. That was your invitation. And then we're going to stop and we're going to just hold this as a posture. But when we go to hold it as a posture, just take your arm overhead to where it's comfortable. And if your left leg wants some support, you can either place the right leg underneath it, or for some people that's all you need, but here's where those blankets can come in handy. You could place a blanket between your thighs. So if your knee's up here more, double up that blanket, however you need to do it. And you're still going to feel that lengthening through your left waist. If you want a little bit more of the rotation of the spine, then begin to slide your thighs up towards your shoulders. So instead of knees being further from my pelvis, I would bring them up. So from this side, it would look like this. Instead of here, I'm going to draw the legs up. Okay? Find that good position, not too squishy, not too firm, just right for you. And then begin to focus on that left side. Notice how your breath is very naturally directed into your left lung. You might sense how your right lung is a little more compressed. And we'll be in this position for approximately 2 minutes. Just think of it as loving your left lung, your hip, the upper waist, arm, leg, wherever you may feel this right now. And as we were moving, the inhalation was creating the movement, and we may have felt that focus of sensation on our body with each breath in and out, the change of sensation. But now you're asking your body to be still, but there's still, within that stillness, there's probably changing sensation. So where do you feel the stretching or the tension in the body? Tension is sensing that the muscles are lengthening from both ends. You might even take your right hand and gently touch your right side. Use your hand to acknowledge that left lung. Breathe into your right hand where it's touching your ribs. And wherever your head seems to want to go to find comfort in the neck. You can continue to land and locate. But locate yourself from your bones. Give yourself permission to release all of the muscles. So that's all that's left here is like the breath is having this little party in your right lung, your left lung and left side.
stay in this stillness physically, even if your mind is not being still. Keep inviting it back. And you may begin to feel how even as the body's still, there's plenty of sensation to sort through. Just from the movement of the breath and the ribs. And also acknowledging that sense of support underneath you. There is no shortage of support coming up from the earth, holding the weight of your bones. Take 5 to 8 more rounds of breath. Maybe say something nice to your left side. You can think of your stomach, your spleen, the descending colon, and of course your heart. Just to name a few. Feel into your back's left side, into your left kidney. Say nice things to the viscera in the left side of your body, all those lovely organs. Then just begin to wiggle the fingers on your left hand or open and close the hand. And once the hand's moving, the wrist can move, and you can start to slide that arm down to your side. Once the arm's down, you can lift the legs back up, or what I like to do is roll all the way over to the right side first, just for a moment, and rock on that right side. And then roll all the way back onto the back side. Take about 5 breaths to come back into your neutral position. So wherever you started, whether feet were on the ground or legs long. And notice if you feel any difference in the two sides of your body. So one of the ways we keep the brain present in our practices is to encourage it to compare the two sides of our body when we do a posture, a sequence on one side. We haven't done the other side yet. And we compare in a way that's filled with loving kindness. No comparison that's judgmental. It's the kind of comparison where when you notice things, you just say, wow, or interesting, or thank you for showing me. And before we go into the next side, just hug your knees into your chest for a moment. Maybe roll on your low back. And we'll take the feet back down, and we're going to do the right side now. So you can widen your heels. The wider the heels are apart, the more you're going to feel that stretching. But see what feels good for you. Arms can come to the side, and start by just acknowledging, again, the big toe side of your right leg, your right thigh bone. And as you take a breath in, reach that right thigh bone towards the front left quarter of the mat, or like you're going to touch your inner knee on your left foot. And exhale, come back up. Foot is flat. And you can make this movement from your foot. You can think of initiating by rolling on to the big toe. You could also initiate by taking your thigh bone inward, so moving from the thigh, lengthen that beautiful thigh bone. You might try to move more from your waist. Take your right hip and waist forward and arch it. There's all different ways to train our brain to do the same movement with different muscle combinations. It's this idea that we have full control. We can voluntarily make this movement with full awareness. And then if you want to add your right arm in, you're welcome to, as you inhale, bring the leg in, reach the right arm overhead. Feel your right upper waist lengthening towards the back of the room. Exhale, release. Feel that tension you create, but it's a yummy tension through the right side of the body, coming back. Sensing that you're timing the movement with your breath. There's no hurry. You can feel it all the way to the end point at the top of the inhale, even that pause at the top of the inhale. And the time to completely release all the way to the bottom of the exhale. That's the beautiful thing about this time of year, is it invites us to stop hurrying, to slow down, maybe even sleep a little more, to do softer, more easeful practices. I call it my winter hibernation practices. We'll do one more round. And then this time we're going to find that place to hold. So watch that your arm's not straining. You can always bend your elbow, or you could also put something underneath your arm if you find it's lifting. And you can just let that right leg fall in. If there's any pulling, particularly sometimes you'll feel it right in that inner knee, then what I encourage you to do again is you could drop the left knee as well, or keep that left leg up and put something between the thighs. So for me, I just need a little blanket. You might need a thicker blanket, or you may enjoy a pillow. You can keep the thigh bones long towards the front of the mat, or if you want to feel a little bit more rotation of the pelvis and the spine, draw the legs just a little bit up towards your left shoulder. And take a moment to kind of squirm around. I always do that. You got to take that extra 30 seconds to really embody the pose, to find where your body wants to be. And it might be different on this side than it was on the first side. And then invite in that stillness. Invite yourself into that space where we no longer move other than our breath and our thoughts. We still sense the connection of what parts of our body are touching the earth. And we let those parts land. We can locate ourselves from everything that's landing on the earth. Where are you choosing to let your head rest in your skull? Is it in the center or more towards the right ear, the left ear? Just noticing. And perhaps you remember where you felt stretching on the left side, and where do you feel it now on the right side? Is it more in the hip or the waist, upper waist or lower waist? Do you feel it in the thigh? And can you just let go into that stretching? Begin to sense your right lung. The right lung has now made itself accessible for breathing. And if you want, you can even take your left hand there. Feel your own ribs as they move. The lung expands. That rhythm of the lung gently pressing into the ribs, and the way the ribs just yield to the lung tissue, allowing themselves to spread. And then easily coming back together. That ease that you feel in your breath can be sent anywhere in your body. So if you're feeling any pulling in your hip or your thigh, your armpit, Just breathe in and notice it. And breathe out with that same ease that you're breathing out of your lung. Just letting go. And in the right side, we can show gratitude for the lovely liver. The tiny gallbladder underneath it. Your ascending colon carries all that unwantedness out of your body. The backside, acknowledge your right kidney. Anything else that comes to mind for you. See all of your organs as healthy and happy. And also notice if there's any place that you're struggling to release and relax. Do you feel fully supported? Can you allow yourself to feel fully supported? Take about 5 to 8 more rounds of breath. Acknowledging the leg, the shape of your waist, your spine, this gentle rotation in the pelvis. Whatever it is that draws your mind into your body. There's no right or wrong. It's all yours and you get to own it and feel it. And some days that includes grumpy parts. That's okay. And begin to wiggle the fingers on your right hand. Open and close your right hand. You're welcome to rotate your wrist. And then slide your right arm down to your side. If you want to go straight onto your back, you can. I prefer to roll all the way onto the left side first, using my left arm as a pillow. And just rocking, giving yourself a soothing, rocking movement. And then we'll roll back onto our back. So we're going to do, that was the internal rotation of the hip. Now we're going to go into the external rotation of the hip. So we come back onto our backs, feet on the ground. And we'll go back to doing the left leg first. So you cross your left ankle on your right thigh and just start from there. So if you're tighter through your hips like I am, you'll see your knee will be closer to your chest. And just instead of pushing the knee, think of gently opening the hip crease, because what also happens is that left hip will slide up, or the pelvis will tilt, so the left side of the pelvis is closer to your shoulder. So just gently push that forward and see how that feels. You might even just put a little bit of pressure and then release it. We're going to do 2 different moves in this external rotation of the hip. So the first one, you can keep your right foot on the floor, maybe take your arms out to your sides, and just allow the legs to drop to the right, to the left, and then come back up. So I just let them fall. I usually let that happen on the inhale, and exhale, come back up. And you can also explore the other direction. You could let them fall to the right. And you're going to feel that waist again, both sides of the waist lengthening like they were doing in our internal rotation. Just letting yourself rock from big toe to little toe side of the right foot. Really simple. And if that feels okay, of course you can keep doing that because it feels really good maybe. Otherwise you lift your right foot off the ground and give your left leg a little ride. Begin to make circles with the right thigh. You can take it to one side and then right thigh away from you, the other side, towards your body. Notice how as you come towards your body, you'll feel more stretching through that back side of the pelvis. You can let your head roll around too. I like to think of my head following my tail or my nose following my tail. You can switch the direction of the circles if you're doing the circles. We'll do a few more. If at any time it feels like it's too straining, because remember the purpose of the movement is we move to allow ourselves to feel like we've had enough movement and be still, right? We want to be still, while also waking up that hip. So this time when we go into the rest position, we're going to go on the front side of our body. And I want you to see my legs, so I'm going to do a full flip, but you can just roll onto your belly. So I'm going to come onto my belly, and depending on how high and how much padding, you could bring a blanket with you. I actually like the bigger, thicker blanket. And put the blanket next to you on the left side. Once you're down on your belly, you could use a pillow. You could also use your arms one on top of another. Rest your head on your top arm bone. So that gives you a little bit of a back bend, creating space in the chest. But then we're going to open up that left leg, and gravity is going to help it. So all you need to do is slide, I'll move that out of the way, slide the left knee up. And think of sliding it up towards your head and away from your pelvis. So you're lengthening that thigh bone out. Now right now I'm on the ground, so that's kind of bony for my inner knee. But if you want more stretching or you need the padding, what you can do is put that knee on a blanket. As we raise it up, it gives it a little bit deeper stretch in that inner groin area. I'm going to choose to keep my knee bent. If you want a deeper stretch, you can try extending that leg out as well. So extending through the left foot. I'm not sure if that's still on camera. And then we're resting. We're going into that space of stillness and silence. Feel yourself right into that inner left thigh, just sensing the space of the inner left thigh. Not needing to do anything movement-wise. The only doing here is perceiving, feeling. Every time you breathe out, give yourself permission to let that inner left thigh release towards the ground. Even feel the weight of the inner thigh. Each breath out, it gets a little bit heavier, releasing down into the ground. You can check the back side of your left leg and pelvis too, just being sure that you're not tightening any muscles around the low back or in the buttocks. Fully supported, fully appreciated. Not doing, just being.
If you direct your breath more into your belly, around the navel center, you might sense that little bit of deeper stretch even in the skin around your navel and that inner left thigh, the low abdomen. So now this posture is making space for your breath all the way down in the abdomen. If you have your arms crossed and your head lifted, you also might sense the space in the chest. And you could honor that by bringing your breath into your chest. Feel how the ribs gently press into the ground on the breath in. And release the whole back body in towards the floor as you breathe out. Feel the weight of the ribs as they gently press into the ground with each breath out, just because the weight of the back body brings you there. Taking 5 to 8 more rounds of breath. And then begin to wiggle the toes on the left foot. You might rotate your ankle. And then slowly slide your thigh back down. And feel free to just jelly roll your thighs on the ground side to side. Shake your hips side to side. And then take that moment to just notice the A side and the B side. Any differences, any similarities. Does one thigh feel longer, shorter, heavier, lighter? Anything that you can feel, it's all yours. It's a really lovely process when we begin to sense how much we really feel in our bodies even when we're still. How we can go deeper into that practice of embodiment, not just with movement, but with stillness. Detecting even the most subtle sensations and differences. And then we'll be coming back onto our back side again. So you can just roll over if you'd like. Or if in between you want to take your hips back into a little bit of a child's pose. I love that one in between because we're in a bit of a back bend. So you can support your head, rock your hips side to side. And come back to this space where our bodies are more even, symmetrical. And if you're already there, we're catching up to you, but we're going to come on to the back side. And we'll be working with the right hip in that external rotation. After I fix everything from that last pose. So take your right leg, cross the outer right ankle on the left thigh. And just take that moment to lengthen your right hip crease. You can even take your right hand right into the hip crease. Get to know it. Feel that area. And gently push it towards the front or the front of your mat or away from your torso. You might even do a couple gentle pushes and releases on your thigh. Just feeling this position, this bent leg position. And then your left leg will be the supporting leg this time and moving the right leg. So you can start by feeling the big toe side of left foot. I like to take the hands out to the sides just so my whole upper shoulder area isn't rocking. And then tipping onto the big toe side of the left foot.
and lifting back up. You can tip on the inhale, so just like we did earlier, almost like you're reaching that left thigh bone inward and forward, but now the right hip is in that external rotation, taking a little ride. And it's not just your legs, you feel it all the way through your torso. You could also go the other direction, tipping onto the pinky toe side of the left leg and letting the hips and legs fall to the left. You can play with one side or alternate. And only you will know what's right for you. The option is there to add the arms in. I like to reach the arm overhead, whichever side of the waist is lengthening, just gently sliding it. You can let your ears roll left and right. Feel your skull rolling. And you're welcome to stay in this movement sequence, or even stay in one of these positions for a moment. Or if you'd like to join me, we lift the left leg off the floor, the left foot, and just make some circles with the left thigh. So you might notice how the side-to-side movement was getting more of the outer hips. Now as you draw the left thigh towards you, you're going to really get deeper into that back side of the pelvis, particularly the right side, but both perhaps. Easy, slow, full, even circles. We watch for things like jerkiness or where we try to skip out and go through those even slower. Left leg strong to support the right leg, and you could switch the direction of the circles. And even though we're focusing on legs and hips, check in to make sure you're not tightening your jaw or lifting your shoulders. Sometimes when we start to use more muscles to lift the weight of the legs, our shoulders might think that it's their job to do that, or our jaw. So you got to release those. Our programming gets a little messed up sometimes with the muscles, so just letting your legs move. And then perhaps going back to just that soothing rocking back and forth before we go into our restful position. So you can uncross your right leg, and I invite you to just flip over onto your belly. I need to do a flip and a flop, as I call it. I'm going to flip onto my belly, or flip over the other way and flop onto my belly. All right, so first, just jelly roll your legs, shift your pelvis, and see, do you want a blanket or something underneath your head? It's all up to you. I like to have the little lift in my chest, so I come into what's called Crocodile Pose, taking opposite hand to elbow and then resting my forehead on the top arm bone. Start there for just to let the weight of the front of the pelvis release and relax, the weight of the thighs, the abdomen, the shoulder blades slide down your back. Each time we go into a new position, we have to reset that GPS. We got to know where we're starting from. And is it a comfortable position? And then this time we'll be sliding the right thigh bone towards the armpit and out and away from the hip. So there's really two ways to deepen it. The more you bring the leg upward towards your armpit, but also the more you lengthen the thigh away. The other thing is you may keep the leg lower down and just leave it there, making sure there's some sort of padding on that inner knee. Or if you want to lift it a little bit higher, I like to put the blanket underneath my knee and inner calf. Slide that away. Option to extend the leg. For some reason I can do that on one side and not the other.
See, and after all these years, I've learned not to ask why, just accept. Find your juicy spot to hang out. Go right into that inner right thigh. See if you can find where the thigh connects into the front of the pelvis. The low abdomen on the right side. And the weight of the right thigh bone is just encouraging you. It's this big, strong bone. It's encouraging you to release and relax. Check the back side of the left or right hip, making sure that it's not trying to tighten or contract. Release the muscles in the buttocks, the low back. And breathe into that spaciousness of the abdomen where it's stretching the front of the abdomen. You might feel your left hip point on the ground and your right hip point. Noticing where your skin is stretching in your abdomen. And the way the abdomen presses into the floor on your breath in and draws towards the front of the spine on your breath out. The simplest things can keep us connected to our body. If you're feeling that lift in your chest in the crocodile pose, you might invite yourself to breathe into the rib cage and the chest. Notice that little bit of resistance the ribs are met with when you breathe in. They feel the floor. And the way that you can just relax the back body into the floor, feeling that slight compression in the ribs as you breathe out. All the while that inner right thigh keeps lengthening. What is that sensation for you? Explore it for about 5 to 8 more breaths. Sense the toes on your right foot. You can just wiggle them around playfully. Move your right ankle. And then when you're ready, take that right thigh bone off the blanket or slide it back in towards the center of your body. Let the tops of the thighs roll into the ground. Let your hips shift back and forward. You may even want to bend your knees and let the legs rock from side to side, almost like those windshield wipers on your front side. And you can feel now that external rotation and internal rotation. As the legs fall out to the sides of the mat, that's your internal rotation of the thighs. And if you take your ankles and cross them, that's your external rotation of the thighs and hips. So feeling those 2 hip movements we went through. And we're going to end our practice with just a short child's pose. So pressing into your hands. And if child's pose isn't comfortable for you, I'm going to give you a second option. But you can take your hips back. One way to make it more comfortable is to put a blanket between your thighs and your calves. If you don't like the way that your ankles push into the ground, you could put that same blanket, mine's a little messy now, underneath your knees so that the ankles hang off the back and they're not pushing into the ground. So those are two different options, or maybe you take both of those options. The other way to use the blanket, and it's not an or, it may be all, is in front of your head here or even under your belly. I love to do a little belly padding. Put it right there. Blanket number 2 for my head. Arms can be in front of you or behind you with hands touching the ground. If you're finding that this posture is not for you, the child's pose, then instead of doing that entirely, you're going to come onto your back and hug your knees into your chest. Same thing, just on the back side. So if it's too much compression in the child's pose, just come onto your back and hug your knees in, and we'll be meeting you there shortly anyhow. What we're mostly trying to do is just go right into that stillness. So if you're fighting your body in any way, that stillness will be hard to attain. And just letting your back body open up. Notice the length through the back of the pelvis, the sacred sacrum. Even in the shoulder blades, let the shoulder blades slide away from the center of the spine. Whichever position you're in, taking that 5 to 8 more rounds of breath, remembering that for now, you can simply feel yourself as breath and body. If you are in the child's pose and your hands are behind you, slide them out to use the strength of your arms to slowly lift yourself up. If you're on your back body, we're coming to join you. And this is where I'm going to encourage you to take some extra padding first underneath the neck. Open up one of your blankets if you have two and roll it just a little bit, like about halfway. That's going to be your roll for your neck. So I'm going to put my neck right so that the roll of the blanket is underneath the lumbar curve, the cervical curve in my neck. We're going to do the lumbar next. So that's there and it's supporting it. And then the second blanket, one of two things. You can cover yourself. If you have three, for sure do that. But if you like to extend your legs, then take the second blanket and fold that and put it underneath your knees and your thighs. Something like that. And then I've got three. So I'm going into full fall cover mode. So you're filling in any gaps. So in that back of the neck is now supported, that secondary curve there. And by placing something underneath your knees, you're letting that low back completely relax. You can jelly roll your legs side to side. See how far apart they want to be. And maybe the toes just want to roll out to the edges. Arms can be at your sides. Or perhaps you want to go back to that first position where we had a right hand on the belly and left hand somewhere around the heart.
we started in a similar position. And we posed the simple question to ourselves, can we stay present in physical body and breath? And how did the mind respond to that when we were first still and doing our observation, our landing and locating? And if you ask your mind once again to stay present in breath and body, what is the response now? Is there a sense of wanting and accepting the stillness? And opening into the bigger picture, being sensitive within that still space, sensitive to all the sensations that are present in the stillness. Your present to yourself is your presence in your body, your breath, and the way that you can invite the mind at any time to revisit this place. You can begin to wiggle fingers and toes and rotate wrists and ankles. Maybe move your head from side to side or open and close your jaw. Always sounds like such a crazy thing to think that we have to practice relaxing. But we have to practice relaxing. You know, it takes a while for the trees to drop their leaves. And if we were to just go straight from the heat of the summer and the long daylight to the dead of winter, that would be quite drastic. So doing these little practices where you incorporate some movement and then sliding in some stillness, it's a great way to begin to bring you from fall into winter. Just these little dribbles of stillness. When you're ready to come up, you can bend your knees if they're not bent. Roll to one side or the other, and pausing again on your side. Use your arms and the strength of your arms to bring yourself back up. Or of course, don't come up at all. Stay there even longer. I hope you do. And let your mind explore the sensations of stillness. Thank you for joining me today, especially to my Patreons. And please subscribe if you're not subscribed. I release a video every Saturday morning, at least. Peace, joy, love, and light.